We're back. Episode 91. You know what I've noticed?
Oh, we're getting close. What?
Yeah, we are getting close. Till 100 and then we're done forever. Is we get about 30-ish views an episode and only like one like. That seems ridiculous, right? For all of you that are watching, hit the like button, huh?
And while you're at it, just go over and hit the subscribe while you're there.
Might as well. You're there. It takes 2 seconds. It's that little bit of effort. It's like, do I go to the gym? Do I not? Just get in the car and you're on your way.
I have been doing that more for social media pages that I'm liking, like that I consume, or like I'm getting a lot of education from their content. Like a lot of the face yoga ones, I'll go and like every single one. So I'm like, this helps them in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and I want them to be doing more. So I'm trying to see it as like, I'm being another person that shows you like, keep doing this. This is good. Push more with this content.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole name of the game. It's like if you're liking and subscribing to the things that you like, you're probably going to be shown more of that. And also it's helping, like that's how that person makes something of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And probably continues to go. It's like, we've already talked about it. If we do this for a certain period of time and like it's just staying at a small number, it's like, this is not worth doing anymore.
Right.
So I'm sure other people that are creating do the same thing where it's like, I'm going to do this for a while, but if I'm getting 2 views every thing I put out and no likes for 3 years, like I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
It's so much work, like to do this for free and for how much work it is to not get some sort of thing back. It's like, there's obviously a grace period of you need to do this for a while to build up the audience. But like, there's a certain point where it's like, okay, this is just so much time and effort for nothing. So,
and I think
hit the like button.
Otherwise, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What was the Rick Glassman? What did he say?
I don't know. Thank you. Come again.
Thank you. Come again. Bye-bye. I feel like that's something that my dad cannot hear because he will use it a lot. What was I going to say? Yeah, well, and it's a good gauge of, like, it helps us know. Now, what do we do much with that information? I don't know. But, like, it helps see what do people like to see.
Yeah, it is hard because some stuff seems to get pushed out into the algorithm and then some stuff does not. It's very weird. Like, I've noticed that with the shorts. The stuff that is a little bit more health and fitness base gets our usual numbers. But if I put anything that is like something that's funny on the episode, it gets nothing.
Correct. Yes.
No views, yes. No nothing. So it's like,
very clear on like TikTok. It's very clear what topics people like and what topics people get triggered by. Because those are the ones like we'll get no comments and then all of a sudden it's like
ones that people get upset about?
Upset, or ones that they like. All of the kids and parenting ones seem to get decent traction because either people are like, yes, people need to be hearing this, or I actually get with a lot of those like questions, like furthering the conversation, like asking what would they do in this situation type of thing. But then there are a lot of ones where they're like, you can tell you just are not in the same understanding of what we're talking about and you're getting upset about it, or where you feel like this is a personal attack on you. But it's like always those specific topics that I'm like, oh, I can tell when you give me a short, like this one's going to piss people off.
Oh, and see, for me, like, I think YouTube just doesn't get as much, the YouTube short just doesn't get as much traction.
Sure.
And it just feels so random of what's going to end up going and what's going to end up getting nothing.
I feel like YouTube videos, once you get people paying attention to you, have the interaction, but TikTok way more even, I think, than Instagram has, like, you're going to get a lot of that interaction, I think. I don't know if that's just like platform by platform. What is the norm? So they feel like, oh yeah, this is what we do. We comment on things.
Yeah. TikTok seems to just be overrun by like white moms now.
I don't know. We get a lot of male people like on our like going to our
Really?
page.
I just can't envision TikTok being a male dominated thing. It just seems
It seems feminine, yeah.
it seems feminine, and it seems like, you know,
Like teenage girls. That's all that's on there.
yeah,
And
maybe
like
it's
you said,
because
moms.
maybe it's because teenage girls don't tend to comment. They probably just scroll.
No,
to where
it's the
like
moms that
the
will comment.
moms that comment on
Yeah.
every single thing. But that's the same thing that happened with Facebook too. It's like moms just took over Facebook. It's like that's all you see is moms commenting and posting and whatever
100.
because their husbands won't listen to them.
100%.
You know what's interesting? This
What?
is interesting though. This is interesting.
Okay.
I figured something out.
What?
Between women.
Oh, I was
I
like,
learned something.
sorry, what was that language?
So, women love to be prepared. Probably more than anything in the world.
Okay.
They love preparation, and they love you knowing about being prepared.
That's interesting.
They want
That is
they
interesting.
want to be so prepared, and they want to tell you that they're prepared. And if you don't get prepared, they want to force you to be prepared.
Now let's break this down. Are you talking about all women in general, or are you just covering up that you're specifically talking about me?
I'm talking about all women in general, because
And I'm in that bucket.
and you're in that bucket. They love being prepared, and they love, this is their favorite, women's favorite thing in the world, is when they told the man to be prepared and the man did not be prepared, and then it came back in his face. Oh, that is the most rewarding thing to women in the world.
But it's not rewarding if there is no grief on your end. Like if there is no, you're right, or like I'm sorry, like yeah, I should have. If you're just like, it makes me more mad because I know it's gonna happen again.
And that's why I'll never succumb to
It's
telling
gonna
you.
happen again.
Well, of course it is. But here's where
And who gets screwed?
the water gets a little murky with this, is you only pay attention to when you were right. But when you weren't right and there wasn't preparation that needed to be had and everything goes smooth, there's no, oh, I guess we didn't need to be prepared. There's no reciprocal of what you're talking about. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and I guess I'm trying to put into a situation where I would. I guess, okay, so most situations, I think for me, I don't feel super confident in, like, you're really good, and I think a lot of males are good at this. You're good at thinking on your feet, to where I don't think females are good at thinking on their feet. So I'm having to prepare because I know I don't I know I don't thrive in that situation. If something comes up, I freeze. So like I want to be able to like, okay, I'm bringing all my prepared materials to the situation, or my prepared thoughts, or my prepared whatever discussions, so that I kind of have this armor going into it, because I could be walking into a situation where I'm not equipped to handle it quickly, or someone is going to be trying to push me down. So I need to be there. Like, no, I'm also ready for the situation too.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, men have a better quick reaction time with that.
Sure,
and I
figure
don't
it
think
out.
they have that and I don't want to put this on all women. This is just for me.
No, all women.
I don't think you specifically have the insecurity of going to most situations and feeling like I don't know what I'm talking about. So like, for example, like if I was going to go to a doctor's appointment, I'm going to do a little bit of research on what they might be gonna come at me with, so that I can be equipped to handle that conversation with what I have learned already, what I want to have happen, versus I know I could just walk in there and we could wing the conversation, but I know I am not strong enough in my personality to continue to like, no, or to like ask questions, but then let that be still in a space of, but I'm still going to make a decision. I don't have that confidence. I'm like, if I'm not prepared, I'm giving in to whoever I'm talking to or dealing with.
Yeah.
And you're not like that, which
Yeah,
is great.
Don't do that. To me, I'm like, just like, you're in control of whatever you want that to be. So just be like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
Like, there's no convincing or not convincing, which I think is part of going into that situation. It's like, are you going into it with your mind already made up, or are you going into it? I don't know. Some people are just easily convinced.
Sure.
There's like, I'm not easily convinced.
Well, and in some scenarios, like the yesterday situation, I think how it went down was fine. It's like you were just calling to get more information, which is what I would have done. Like, call to get, what do I even need to do? It's like going to the DMV with no information. Like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I think you handled that in a way that was still being prepared. And then it just happened to be like, well, you're already in this process, to where I think with some scenarios, I am worried about if they like can sense a sliver of, they don't know what they're talking about, or like a sliver of incompetence, I guess, that is going to ruin like the outcome, or that would change the outcome, to where I think you maybe more see it in certain scenarios. Like, it's just the logistics. Like, it's just about the numbers. It's just about the data that they're being shown, that's how they're going to make a decision, to where I'm like, based off of that conversation, if it's anything off of just what this guy senses, like, I don't think it went well.
Oh, yeah. And it has nothing to do with that. That's where women just don't understand it.
I know.
And not everything is about the sense of the person. It's also like, I think there's a way to be competent, but still unknowing. It's like, you can talk in a way that you assert confidence and competence, but still go like, yeah, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
And it's like, that person still sounds like, oh, but they have a sure sense of themselves and understand things. They just don't know what this thing is.
Okay. So with that,
but if you're like, I don't know. Yeah, of course they're going to be like, this broad doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what life is.
So, but do you
Spinning in circles.
Do you think you have that? Do you think you're able?
Of course I do.
I don't think you do.
What are you talking about, Blade Hand?
You do.
You're crazy.
But it's also just my opinion. Like, just being in those conversations with you.
Well, you also know me to the deep, dark depths.
Sure.
So you're not a good gauge, dog.
Well, why? Why would I not be a good gauge?
Well, because you also might be putting certain assumptions onto me in these situations when that's probably not the case. Because you know me so well.
I think I'm just going off of, if I'm in a conversation with you, or I'm around a conversation happening with you, and you don't know you don't know the answer, you like, maybe not, because a lot of times I think it's maybe just like the topic you're not interested in, but if you don't, I'm not feeling confidence coming from you.
Yeah, because I don't want to talk. It's like this. You drag me onto this podcast, and I got to spit the facts, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to be talking about this stuff with these people.
Even if they're asking you, like, it's asking you questions that you need to answer.
Yes. Now you're forcing me to answer things? Absolutely not. That's why I don't like job interviews.
Yeah.
Don't ask me things. Just look at me and say, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it stems from like a lack of confidence in every situation. That's where the over preparedness comes in.
But see, I think that's too... I think that's too scapegoaty.
I think you evolve into certain situations where you've learned I don't have to be extremely prepared for this situation. Like you learn through time where the confidence can be earned or can be had. Like I think of teaching. When I first started teaching, I had everything written out, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to play this song. You could tell me, hey, can you go over there and actually teach a jazz class? Boom, fine. I can't. I don't need to like prepare all day for an hour class. Like I can walk in and do anything. So that I have now learned where like I'm not going to prepare for that. Like I know I've done it so many times. I have memorized what my protocol is per se, that I don't need to prepare for that situation. But say if it's something at work where like, hey, you're going to read this new thing, or we're going to run this whole system differently, I might just peer over it so that the first time I'm not seeing the structure, I am on stage in front of people running it. That's where I'll be prepared.
Yeah, but you also love telling men that you were right.
But that has nothing to do with the preparedness. That is just
it has
a different...
everything to do
but
with
that's
it.
like overall. Like that's not just in the category of being prepared.
That's how you found your sneaky little way to be able to go, I was right. You love to just watch it happen too. You just sit and you just look over and you see and glowing. Because you know. And you know that depending on the person, never going to be me. But you know, depending on the person, they're going to say, you were right. I should have done this, this, and this.
Yeah, never would that be you.
I should have done what you said. Man,
I shouldn't say that.
Women just love that.
You have said that to me. It's just years later. Where you're like, remember that situation 3 years ago? I think you had it cracked.
I just find it so interesting that the opposite never happens. Never, ever, ever. When it's like, should we do this and this and this and this? No, let's just go there and we'll figure it out. And it goes perfect. There's never like, you know what? You were right. It was fine. It was totally fine. It was like, well, then you start making shit up. Well, I guess I wish I would have brought, a cardigan because blah, blah, blah,
You've been
blah.
saying cardigan a lot. I don't own a single cardigan, so I don't know where you're getting this.
You definitely own cardigans. What are you talking about?
You don't know what a cardigan is, clearly.
The blue one, the yellow one?
That's not a cardigan.
Cardigans.
That's just a sweater.
What's the difference?
There is a difference. Yeah, but
sweaters don't have buttons.
A cardigan is basically like a small button-up, just over tiny thin sweater. Sure. Go try to find one. But this is where... Okay. Even in those situations where it maybe didn't need to be so prepared, I think a lot of the times I am still happy that I was more prepared. So there's not really going to be a you told me so. And if I'm thinking of specific situations where you're like, well, just wing it. First of all, I've gotten so much better at just winging it compared to years ago. I've gotten so much better at just rolling with the flow of that. But a lot of times certain situations. I'm like, see how these people didn't think this through enough? See all the things that they forgot? And for you, it's also just a preference.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient.
It's just a preference because you would be like, yeah, and that stuff doesn't matter. And I'm like, maybe it does though a little bit.
I think it's really convenient you got rid of all of your cardigans right before this episode.
It has been a while since I've owned a cardigan. Have I had them in the past? Yes. Have they been in this? No, they have not been in Florida.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a prepared boy.
Yeah.
But there's... See, this is where it's different. There's the preparedness of actually being prepared for something. And then there's the preparedness that women do of just they want to catch the man and tell them I was right. Sit on that. Chew on that. Men and women play these games. They play these games outside of logistics and outside of making sense. They play these games because they're testing boundaries. They're like just big children. They're testing boundaries. They're seeing what they can get away with. Some people are a little bit more on the narcissistic side than others, so they play it a lot. But everybody plays it a little bit. And the man and women game, according to Preparedness, is this game where women want to be super prepared and tell the man to be prepared and then catch them when they're not and say, see, I was right. There's some sort of like self-fulfilling joy out of that they just like, and because they can go that's like, well, I was just looking out for you and this and this and that. It's all this manipulative, I'm caring for you. That's the game that they play. And the men on the other side play the like, why are you worrying about all this? I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe that's just like it's. I think it's totally right. What you're saying is we're only accounting for the sides where it works for each other.
Yes, of course.
Because in my opinion, I'm like, and that has bitten you in the ass so many times.
And according to me, it works more than biting you in the ass.
Sure, and even the times where I think it screwed you,
can't recognize that.
Even the times where I think it screwed you, you have been like, it was fine.
Yeah,
and I'm like, how do you consider that?
Yep.
But for you, you're like, I don't feel embarrassed by that. You don't feel uncomfortable during the situation to where I'm like skid crawling.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just
those situations are, I'd rather have those than the 24 hours of preparedness that you got to be.
There's definitely a balance.
And then it's still like, there's no winning with that. Even after you've prepared for so much and then you go do it, you come back, you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this or this or that. And that, like, there's no end to it.
I wonder where that stems from. Because if it is
you want to be told you're right.
No, but like with the preparedness thing, well, and even maybe telling her right, like, what is that? Because if it's a pretty across the board, like a lot of females do it and I also think you're just around people that do it to the extreme to where it's like, this is beyond.
Could it be as simple as women had to basically prepare for the caveman to come home?
Yeah, I don't know.
And the caveman was out in the world of chance and
you have to be
figure it out.
Yeah.
Like there's not a whole, and I think, I don't know, it seems like men have succeeded more off of little bits of preparedness, but lots of, you have to have the capability and figure it out right now. Like that's just it seems like that's more of the formula for men to succeed than for women. For women, it's like you have to have all of your P's and Q's. You have to have your I's dotted, T's crossed type of thing in order to like get to anywhere.
Well, and think about like what their role was as far as food and survival. They did kind of need to plan out like, when do we need to harvest these things? When do we need to like save them because these things are going to stop growing. So we need to pick them all now so that we can save them, or
how many days does this meat go bad? How many days do these vegetables go bad? How quickly do we need to eat it? How you know, if they're going to come home before dark, when do I need to start making this meal?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, even just having children, that's a much more of a prepared, like, I don't know, just the whole thing seems to be more preparation. The duties that the women do for children is more preparation and getting that set up. For the men, it's like, come home and just be there and have some joy.
Yeah, to where I think now women are in all of the roles. So it like,
well, they're in it more.
It came from what berries grow when to we're throwing it into spreadsheets and emails.
Well, and I think this is where you totally hit it on the head earlier of, especially coming into these jobs, which is, it's not new anymore, but like, I feel like women had to be so prepared, like knowledge wise. Like you said, you go into the doctors, I want to be able to know all of the information and all the things. That's my way of showing that I'm competent in this.
And that you're not going to trick me.
Well, right. To where for men, it's like, it's more of a, I think it is more of an attitude, kind of emotional dominance act of who's right, who's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even about the logistics or the preparation or like the information a lot of the times. It's just about, am I able to say this more confidently with maybe more pizzazz and a little bit more assertiveness than you are?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to say the right words. I just need to say them in a way that makes you believe it. To where women can't get away with that.
No, because most situations, I would think, most situations we're going to be already met with, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
like,
what would she know about finances or being a lawyer or
I mean, it's
being
anything.
a doctor?
We go to the hotels and like I have to talk to a manager or a contact for this hotel. It's like I'm meeting them. They're going to have a very different interaction with me than it would with our boss. Potentially. Yeah. Unless I walk in like, I know what I'm talking about. This is what we're doing. This is what we're laying down the information. If I just come in and be like bubbly like I normally am, no.
Yeah, no.
They're going to go, yeah, but let me talk. Like my answer will not be good enough. And that's something where they're even told that I could be one of the people in charge, but they're still met with, I'm a female.
Yeah.
And I'm like I'm not like coming at you with aggression.
Part of it is just, your attitude towards it.
Yeah.
Too nice. Told you that since day one. You're too nice. Gotta have more bite.
Yeah, I don't know. But then you've also told me, yeah, you're crazy mean sometimes. You don't realize it.
You are.
It's always
just masked by a nice voice.
Yes.
Yep. You act like I don't know you.
Do you think that parenting decision was the best? Do you notice how she shut down after that?
It's so easy. You're not sneaky at all.
No, sometimes I don't want to be.
You don't know how to ask the question or say the thing without the judgment in your voice.
Correct.
You haven't mastered that yet.
Yeah.
And it's because it's too far away from your natural way of talking. You have to make them closer together. It's another thing that I figured out.
And this is where more of like a maturity level could come into play that I don't have.
It's not maturity though. It's actually more devious and sneaky.
Okay, well,
because you're trying to get an answer from a question that you feel like I should ask, but you're trying to ask. The goal is to ask the question in a way that doesn't trigger
that person to be like, "Ooh, she thinks."
So it's not as much maturity as it is like more devious.
Okay, so but are you asking the question because you're curious about why they did that, or because you're trying to bring it to light to them?
Either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't. And the reason why I said maturity is I don't think I can let go. I need to practice letting go of the ego and the judgment in it, because I'm like, I don't really care why you're doing it. I've already deemed it as that is incorrect.
And I don't even think it's letting go of the ego or their judgment. That's too long. That's going to take too long. Like, good luck.
Sure.
Good luck trying to get that out. Like, there's more
Self-growth, you went, nah,
yeah,
too hard.
No, don't get better as a person. That takes too long. Do you want the answer, or do you want to wait 15 years to get the answer? Because even that, like, people won't. It doesn't matter if you've let go of the ego or the judgment. It's all about the perception of the other person of you. If they perceive you as being, I don't know.
Because I could be totally fine with
aggressive.
it. And they're like, she hated that I said that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be like, and I don't have any ego about this, and I don't have any, I'm not judging you. And
even
then you
that
say
tone is so yucky.
Yeah.
That's like, no offense, but
yeah, exactly.
you're ugly.
Yeah. 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 Towards like, you have to, it's not one question. It's multiple questions to get to your answer. You have to lead the witness a little.
Interesting.
It's like you're almost asking parallel questions to get them to answer the question that you actually want to know.
What do I actually want to know?
Whatever it is you want to know. That's where you tend to mess up.
And that's
you
where I
want
go,
to know this thing, so you go like, I want to know this. Why'd you do that? It's like, whoa. Too direct and assertive. You gotta dance around the question. Or you gotta bring up like, yeah, I noticed that this other person did this thing with their kid one time and blah, 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 blah. And then it's a parallel, but it doesn't have anything to do with what just happened.
But I think realistically, I don't want to know. I just want you to know that that was not correct. It's like,
do you want them to know that when it could ruin the relationship between you? Like, do you want to damage the relationship in order to know that?
In order for them to know that, you mean?
Yeah. Because I think that's where the other, like, if you don't want the relationship damaged, or you care about the relationship and you don't want it to be damaged, then it's still, you gotta work around and lead the witness a little. Because if you're just going right at them and you're like, I want you to know that I think this is wrong. Well, now they might not.
I would hate that if somebody did
want to be around you.
Yeah. I think maybe it would depend on the situation. It would. There are certain things that I can think about right now where I'm like, I think what you're doing is so damaging that if it got brought up or an opportunity to be talking about it, it would be it's like almost to the point of like someone should just be bringing this up for how bad it is. But if it came up in conversation, there's no way where I could just like, well, yeah. There's like, even if you're so upset with me for saying that, it would be hard for me to not be like, this is actually terrible though.
Do you think though,
with kids, it's so hard for me.
Yes, but how often do you think people will actually listen and change? We talked about this just the other day.
Yeah.
If you're talking to somebody, the likelihood that they're going to change their point of view or their opinion on something or actually take what you have to say and do something about it is very, very small. We have to hear it when it's not directly pointed at us.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, I've been saying this thing about kids to you for forever, and you no. And then you listen to one podcast and you change everything. It's like, it's that hilarious thing, but that's just how we work. It can't be pointed at us. It can't be a conversation between me and this person and then them change or me change. It has to be from this podcast or this book we read or this we heard it on the radio or we overheard other people talking or we're the third party in the conversation. There's two people talking and I'm the third almost like the mediator.
Okay.
It's like so you being like they need to know, well they're not gonna take it.
I'm doing that interaction a disservice because what I want is for them to hear it, but they won't hear it because I'm being so direct with it.
It's not even that you're being so direct. It's that the conversation is directed towards them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You could be super passive about it and not direct in your words and...
But that I'm making them the main character in the story.
They're the spotlight. They have the spotlight on them.
Yes.
And people generally don't like that. Especially when it's like you should change this type of conversation.
Yeah.
That's why when people are trying to change something, I think a lot of the times the way that you can tell if this is going to actually stick or happen or not is when they're asking for advice. They are initiating the conversation of, hey, can you give me advice about this thing? If you just come blowing in and go like, hey, I noticed you did this wrong and that wrong and this wrong, they're not going to listen to that. Or you're bringing up the topic because you want to talk about it with them. It's like they didn't want to talk about that or care to talk about that. But when they bring it to you, there's a little bit more likelihood that they're going to do something about it. So if people came to you and was like, hey, I'm noticing this with my kid. What do you think about this? They're probably more willing to do something about it. But if something is happening with their kid and you're like, you should do this, that's like unsolicited advice. They don't want that. The spotlight's on them. It's directed towards them. Even if it's something is, because there's also tiers to this too of like, is this person doing something that's very, very, very bad with their kid and it needs to be stopped right now and immediately? Or is it like you don't like the way that they responded to their kid in that moment? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
no, if it's something like that, that's just more, you chalk it up to like, oh, that stinks. And then I have the ability, with the teaching situation, that's where I have a lot more, I can have more influence on the situation because I'm with the child then.
Oh yeah.
To where it's not really that. It's more like parenting decisions that are continuous. Mm-hmm. That's like, this is so damaging. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's also like not my place.
No. Yeah, unfortunately not.
It's just hard with kids. It's like, ooh, this is going to fuck them up.
Yeah. Well, this is what's hard about everything is you feel like you have some knowledge about it, or do you want to, I don't know, help people with things and not have the problems that they do, but not everybody wants to hear it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that is exactly what it is. Like they maybe don't, they're maybe not in this space. And I'm not saying this from like I would be. No. Because someone brought up shitty things that I was doing. I would not meet with like, you're right. Let me work on this. I'd be like, this sucks to hear. That, and you said this so many times, like the person also needs to be willing to take ownership, see that the problem is a problem in the first place, but really take ownership.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen.
Like I was listening to the podcast with Emma Chamberlain and her mom, and she's like, I think the biggest, she's like, a big thing when it comes to parenting is you have to let go of your ego with it. Because if you can't chalk it up to, I'm going to make a mistake and I need to be aware that I'm going to make a mistake, and I need to be honest with myself that a mistake that I make could royally mess up how my child behaves in this world. And the quicker that I can figure out what that is, I can maybe address it before it's a bigger problem, or work with them or work with myself to not behave that way anymore. Because she brought up, like, she's like, when she was younger, she was like a very reactive type of parent. Like, she said, like, Emma was very rebellious and just kind of wanted to be crazy all the time. And the mom is very, like, control, everything is in place, like the preparedness thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Emma was like, I'm gonna do everything opposite of what we need to be doing. That she would always just, no, you have to do this. Or like, you don't want to brush your teeth? Doesn't matter, we have to. Instead of having the conversation with her and figuring out how to work with that child as an individual. And she said, she's like, I was just watching a TikTok of this reactive style, and how quick, she's like, and how quickly that kid just like shrunk down. And she's like, and now I see you with friendships, relationships, and business agreements where you're like, they just will say whatever it is, and you're like, okay, fine. And you don't have any sort of conversation with them, or you're not good at negotiating your deals, or you're not good at having those, well, no, this isn't how I want this relationship to go, or whatever. She's like, you just immediately give in. And she's like, I didn't know until a little bit ago that most likely that is from me years of reactive with you. And I'm like, I forced you to shut down. And she's like, and even Emma was saying, like, it takes a mature and someone with less of an ego to even admit that you made that big of a damage as a parent, and to apologize for it, but then also to go like, okay, let's fix this because I messed that up in you. Or just like, hey, heads up, you probably have this from something in your childhood. You don't need to be this way. That is hard to do for people.
Oh, yeah.
People being like everyone, like us too. Like, that's hard to, take your ego out of things.
Well, and I think we all, we're always making small mistakes, but we don't want to take ownership over the big ones. It's like, we'll make the mistakes of like, oh, I forgot to run the dishwasher when I left, or I forgot to do this, or, this thing happened and whatever. But then when you have kids, I can imagine it's like, this is now very, very large. And if I make a mistake with this, it could have that large of an impact, but you don't want to take the ownership of that, because that sounds crazy that I did something, or the way that I parented affected my kid, and now has this negative
effects
effect
on their relationship and career.
Right. That's a lot of ownership to take, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I dropped the plate and food went everywhere. Like, that's easy to take ownership over. But the big royal fuck up, or something with your kid, because the consequences
are so different.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think that's probably why you see like parents judging parents all the time.
Because it makes them feel better?
It not only does, it might make them feel better, but it's like, that's how difficult it is to take ownership. Is now I'm going to judge other people. Mm-hmm. Like, there's probably a weird, that's why we judge people, is because we don't want to take ownership over our own stuff.
Sure.
It's like, if I just took ownership over everything in my life, I probably wouldn't have time, or I would have more understanding of that person, of what they're doing. Because that's really what the judgment, I think, kind of comes back to, is like, you're judging them for not taking ownership over whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
To where, you're just pointing out your own stuff, probably, or your own lack of. Mm-hmm. And then when you have kids, it's like, that's probably the most important and biggest judgment and ownership taking. So that's why you see it even more, and even, even larger, on a larger scale.
I think for both moms and dads, but not to be like especially moms, but it's something that my assumption, just based on how I feel without even having kids, is like, it's this thing that is like your only purpose in life. Like, biologically, spiritually, whatever, this is the thing that you were made to do, And if you if you mess that up too, that like it sucks worse. It's like if I'm not good at remembering the dishes or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at remembering laundry or whatever.
Tell that to me.
But like if I am
think
that
you should care about it more
not
than you do.
in tune with messing up parenting, then it's like, oh God, the thing that I'm made to do, I'm not good at.
But that's the trick of it, is you're gonna fuck up the kid.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't go unscathed in that. That's not the point of it.
Yeah.
The point isn't to raise them to perfection. It's like what your dad always says, just better than you had.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of that's a good marker to go by. Because it sets the bar high or higher, and then you're trying to reach that, and
yeah, and I would
then
say
you're allowing the inevitable to happen.
Sure.
Of like, yeah, I made mistakes and shouldn't have done this, and
sure.
And hopefully it's just you made mistakes with like the lack of information being out there about what to do, and not like you couldn't control your emotions, or like you weren't kind of like you had the capabilities but you chose to not use those capabilities.
Sure.
Hopefully it's not that. Hopefully it's you did everything in your capability, but we didn't know that, you know, this thing is bad for him or something.
Well, and that's where maybe getting into it in the next episode, like we obviously know this. We've talked about this so much. I feel like this is my like mom boot camp in the last how many years, but just a validation even further. The lady that I'm just so obsessed with now. Like parenting is so much of you have to have your shit together in order to have your kid thrive underneath you. Like if you are emotional, how are you going to teach this person to manage their emotions and to like you are going to be reactive because you don't have your own ego in check, your own insecurities in check. You don't know. Like, I mean, even like the post that I just did about teaching, like what are your triggers or stressors or insecurities that come up when you're teaching? Be aware of those because you might respond from that space of insecurity versus, okay, I know every time a kid cries, to me, somewhere that signals like they don't feel safe with me and I don't like that. But every time that happens, how can I calm myself down, handle like, and think about how would I want to handle that situation if I feel centered and okay? I'm going to just practice that behavior every single time, even though truly I might be feeling a little bit, I don't like this. And then just dealing with that protocol, kind of having those same things. If a parent, if I think, well, every time my kid cries when we're out in public, that's going to be a insecurity of me. Like I'm going to judge myself or I'm going to have some ego about that. I think you need to recognize those things so that you're able to handle it with like a growth maturity mindset versus just, I feel this way, so I'm going to act this way.
Yeah, I think that's why I've just chosen to not care about anything. Because when you just don't care, it's like, yeah, the kid's crying. That's what kids do. They cry. They might be upset. Okay. I'm upset sometimes. I just don't cry. But it's like, there's nothing to be done. It's like, sure, maybe you get them into a safe situation or environment, or maybe they're crying because they're weak at that point. And it's like, no, we're out to eat. Like, you can cry, but we're out here eating. It's like, there's like kids are, here's the thing. There's two spectrums. Kids are a lot smarter than we think they are, and they can sense those things of feeling unsafe and whatever. But the same, it's just like a human being. On the same other side of the spectrum, they're dumb as shit.
Yeah.
And they do things that make absolutely no sense. So I think you need to balance both of those of,
yeah,
is this a situation where they're like being in tune and something is going on? Or is this a situation where they're just being a brat? Or they just are
They're feeling it.
They're just feeling it, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
Too much of the time, like, people sit in just one bucket or the other.
Sure.
Where it's like, the kid's super in tune. We need to do everything about what's going on and move them around. Like,
yeah.
I think that's probably where the natural helicopter parents go, is they think that their kid is this, they know everything, and I got to change or change the situation and make sure they're okay all the time. And it's like, well, no, sometimes they're just upset and it doesn't make any sense. And
they don't care about why it makes sense either.
No.
They're like, you can move you to a completely different environment and change every aspect of the situation. I just wanted to cry for a second.
Exactly. I'm not hungry. I'm not tired. I'm not upset. I don't know. Like, literally there's no reason. It's like, I'm just gonna whatever. And I know a lot of people, I don't know, some people listening are like, what the hell do you know? My mom had a daycare, and I was in that daycare my entire growing up. I've been around kids my entire life. Like, they just do stuff to do stuff. You ever watch a kid just go up to something and just hit it off the table? It's like, that kind of tells you right there, like, they will just do whatever they want to do.
Because all that they're doing all day long is just testing it out. They're going like,
yeah,
I'm going to cry right now. I'm bored. I haven't had a reaction in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's just throw something in the mix.
Yeah.
Or they'll just get angry for no reason. Or they, like you said, they'll just go, I want that toy. I don't actually want that toy. I just want to see what happens when I take that toy from that kid.
Yeah.
Just like, let's see what happens.
Yep. And then I get yelled at, and then I start crying. And it's like, well, you took the toy.
Yeah, no, like, this was the whole plan, just to see what would happen.
I'm still in the plan. I'm seeing what you're going to do when I cry about this. Are you going to fold, or like, they're psychos.
Oh, it's so good.
But I think it's both. You know, it's just like adults. It's just like everybody. People are smart about some things and they're dumb about other things. And it just, sometimes it depends on at what point do you catch them in which act.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, I came across you when you were being smart about something, so now I like you to eternity. And then they say something dumb, and you are so blind you can't see it. But then somebody else says something super dumb, and you're like, that is a dumb person. I need to stay away. When that was the only dumb thing they've said in the last year.
Yeah.
But you have labeled them as dumb, and now they say a whole bunch of smart stuff, but you're like, he's dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, it's the same thing with kids.
Well, and
they're
that's
smart and dumb.
When you break it down, like, thinking of, like, being with someone for a decade, you are going to see a lot of different changes, especially like in your 20s, where you're going from a teenager to a 30-year-old. Like, you're going to see a lot of different life alterations and maybe personality alterations. A child's brain from 0 to 3 is doing the most changing that it's going to do in their entire life. From 0 to 3 years old. You don't think some things are going to get wonky? Like, oh yeah, they're going through the most stuff right now.
They're going to cry and freak out because they don't understand what's happening.
Correct.
Inside their head.
And they don't have a sense of, I mean, think of when people like have anxiety attacks and like they're like, their sense of reality is so warped. But at least as an adult, we have some sort of concept and experience of, okay, this has happened before. Like, something like this has happened. I know that it's going to be fine. To where, hey, they just got here.
Yeah.
They don't have that experience, nor would they remember it anyways.
Nope.
That everything is just like, Like, I have so many students where it's just 1 week, they are a different person. And I'm like, this is a weird change. Mm-hmm. You were the kid that listened and followed directions and was like perfectly, never cried. Come in the next week, they're crying in the corner. Hey, what is this?
Yep.
I don't know, but you're also evolving so fast. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can have an off day every once in a while. That's okay.
We talk about kids and parenting too much, you know?
I didn't even get into my cool topics.
I know it's what you're interested in, but...
Too much?
Golly.
Because you don't like it?
I just envision everybody else being so bored.
Sure.
But you talk about what you're into.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We should probably wrap it up either way.
Make sure you hit the like button if you've made it this far.
Go over and hit the subscribe.
We look at the statistics. 0 people have listened this far. As soon as the kid parenting talk happens, they're like, all right, see you later.
Not this again. Okay.
All right.
See you later.